What red flags do men notice in other men that are often ignored or dismissed by women? How men act when women aren't around. Some bro talk is fine, but you always notice the ones who take it too far. Yes, I've got a workmate that is constantly joking about others, usually when they are not around, belittling comments, etc. Totally different person when his wife is around. She'd have no idea the kind of person she is actually married to. I wonder how many people there are out there that don't really know how their partner behaves when they are not around. I've been with my husband for so long that I've kind of been adopted into his friend groups. Most of the guys are great people, but some of them almost forget I'm a woman, so they'll start being really honest with me about their relationships. They will talk about women like they are just objects that don't have feelings. They only care about what they can get out of the situation, and once the girl can't give that to them anymore, they are over it. One guy I will call I was talking to a girl for a bit. He even introduced her to the friend group. Then on New Year's, he got really drunk and was bragging about how he was ghosting her because she wanted the relationship to progress, and he didn't. Instead of explaining to her that they were moving too fast for him, or that he wasn't feeling it, I just completely ghosted her. She started texting him that night really upset, and he was just showing the messages to the group and laughing. All of us were like, "Oh, that's really not nice." But he still thought it was funny. Then he spent the rest of the night trying to find a girl to come home with him. I've been ghosted like that before and it sucks. It leaves you with so many questions and doubts. I feel so bad for that girl that she's sitting there wondering what she did wrong when really she just dodged the biggest bullet ever. I would message her, but I literally cannot find her information. I think she blocked me on everything, which I understand. Those fuckers that sniff around your relationship waiting for you to have an argument or some distance so they can insert themselves in the cracks. They come across as just friends, but all guys know exactly what game they're playing. Can't say anything without being labeled jealous though. Aka vultures, or sometimes nice guys. Had a best mate actively create this situation. He spent almost a year turning me into a paranoid wreck, secretly whispering into my ear that she was too good for me, how she'd find better, how I couldn't trust her, and that I needed to prepare for her cheating on me. Turned me into a right freak about the situation. Turns out he was waiting for me to finally crack, which I did, and when I checked her phone, I never did this before or since, it was messages from him to her. She was reciprocating the energy. Dang. What happened after, if you don't mind me asking? I went to his house and beat the shit out of him. She went on one date with him a week after. I drank myself into a stupor for a good solid month, as I'd lost my girlfriend and my best friend in one fell swoop. She realized he was a dirty little snake, spent the next month trying to get me back. I caved. She was very convincing. 6 months later we got a house together, and 9 months after, she announced she was pregnant. Yes, she is mine before anyone asks, stayed with her for 5 years after, and then we grew apart. My daughter is 19 now, we're on good terms, had to be. I've not spoken to him since. When a man overly brags about themselves or belittles others to look smarter or more successful, I always view those men as the smallest in the room. Never trust anyone who's the hero of every story they tell. Or the victim. Dudes who try too hard to seem cool. You ever see those guys who squint in their pictures? Those guys. I have multiple women friends who have told me to do the squinted thing for dating profile pics, and I always thought it looked stupid. I agree, it does look stupid. When you know a guy is trying too hard to gain women's validation, and you know he's just doing it to try to smash, but he does the same with other women. All the guys that read this comment immediately just thought of that person in their friend group that does this all the time. Or if they didn't, it's because it's them. It was me, and I cringe at my behavior as a young man. Glad I realized it eventually and met my wife. Aggression. A lot of the women I have seen end up in terrible situation go after that guy that other guys see as competitive or super aggressive and can only take in small doses. These guys generally ignore clues like no, and are quick to physical anger when they don't get their way. Guys that show nudes to other guys. I'm older now, so this hasn't happened in some time, but I remember when I was in my 20s there were guys who would show nudes sent by a girl they were talking to. I don't know, maybe I'm lame, but it always felt incredibly tacky and of course disrespectful. Even if I would never meet the girl, still left me with a feeling of filth against the guy. This reminds me of something I encountered in my work. I repair electronics, not just like doing simple stuff like swapping parts. I will diagnose circuits and repair them under a microscope if I can do it. Do a lot of data recoveries and such. One time a totally fucked up phone happened across my workbench. Screen was beyond unusable, battery was expanding, charge port was destroyed, and it had also been clearly dunked in soda or something. It looked as if someone tried to deliberately destroy it. Like someone tried to rip it apart and screw it up with their bare hands or tools. At a minimum, I'm gonna need to replace the screen, battery and port, and that's before I can even find out if I can repair the motherboard. In other words, very costly repair attempt for no guarantee of a working phone or even data. I contact the customer and tell them I don't recommend doing this unless the data on the device is extremely important. The guy told me he had hundreds of nudes from local girls on that phone, didn't want to lose them, and even told me I could grab a copy for myself if I got it working. I then learned that one of these women, crazy bitches as he so eloquently put it, attempted to destroy his phone, presumably knowing what kind of person he was. This is probably wrong, in a professional sense, but I told him I'd see what I could do. I proceeded to drill a hole through the NAND, effectively reducing it to dust. I called him a week later explaining I tried everything I could to fix it, but there's too much wrong with the device to get data. I put it back together as best I could and gave it back to him. It felt very ethically wrong to do this from a professional perspective. I don't like the idea of screwing with people's data on the basis of, I don't like it. It's not my position to judge. But professional ethics aside, it was data that wasn't his to keep and share with whoever he pleased. Fuck that guy. I don't know who tried to destroy his phone, but I completed the work for her and guaranteed nobody would ever be able to fix it. They talk a lot, but say nothing. Usually indicates they're fucking stupid, or self-centered, or both. But if he's good looking, that gets ignored. Though to be fair, that caveat applies to nearly every answer in this thread. Love bombing at the start of a relationship. Have a friend who started dating a guy and 2 weeks later she introduces him to me. Immediately noticed her getting constantly complimented but in a possessive way. After we left that night, she had pre-planned to crash at my home. I warned her something felt off. Few months later he turned not only abusive, but she found out he was still legally married after saying he was divorced for 2 years. Narcissists. I can normally spot one from a mile away, but girls either somehow don't notice it or choose to ignore it. It can sometimes come off as confidence, which in itself is attractive to women. My theory is those women may have grown up with narcissist fathers or male figures in their life, so they learn to find those kinds of traits normal and comforting and appealing. It can take a lot of intention and therapy to break those negative cycles. That's my experience anyway. When a man drops a girl after they have sex, some people don't believe men will jump through hoops just to get laid, but they actually will. No matter how good of a time he seemed to have, no matter how into you he seemed. If he drops you after having sex once, he was only telling you what you wanted to hear so he could get in your pants. I never got this. If all you want is sex, why not keep seeing that girl who already had sex with you? Chances are she'll do it again, right? The sex itself isn't the whole of it. They want to win, and once they win, they lose interest and want to go win somewhere else. I think it's often a matter of men feeling comfortable around other men and not showing their true colors to others. So I wouldn't begrudge anyone else for not seeing red flags. But if I had to pick one that is often visible to everyone, it would be insecurities that manifest in jealousy, with the jealousy in turn masquerading as the man taking on the protector role. While it's important for people in a relationship to support and protect each other, protection should not extend to the point where it infringes upon one party's individual agency. I'm sure a good amount of girls know this, but for the ones that don't, a guy that is super charismatic and easy to joke with and talk to, appears very well kept, very upbeat, and likely walked up to you with absolutely zero hesitation or reservation. He is practiced and very good at this. He knows what you want and how to serve it. You weren't the first and probably not the last. If you ever meet someone like this and are actually interested in him, unless you are just looking for a hookup, play it real slow. I think a real good answer is only men sometimes understand mental health for men. I agree. I introduced someone to my dad a few years ago. Once he left, my dad told me to be very careful because the guy was no good and was playing an act. I was very surprised and confused since the guy was very nice and sweet with me. But my father was right. The mask ended up slipping and he is one of the most fucked up and aggressive person I ever met. He just hid it well until he thought I was stuck. I accepted his proposal. He was shocked when I told him to fuck off. I still don't know what clues my dad picked on, but I trusted him even more. Men know men better, same things for women knowing other women better. When he met my now husband, he was positive from the get-go. What red flags do men see in other men that women overlook? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.